the country that printed too much money. Zimbabwe and Weimar Germany, when notes became bigger and value became zero. On a quiet morning, a man walked into a bakery carrying a suitcase. Not because he was traveling, not because he was rich, because that was the only way to carry money. The baker didn't look surprised. He had seen this before. Everyone had. The man opened the suitcase, and inside were stacks of banknotes, thick, colorful, official, covered in seals and signatures. Millions, maybe billions. The baker glanced at the money, then at the bread behind him. He sighed. "Prices changed," he said. "Again." By the time the man argued, by the time he counted the notes, by the time the baker wrapped the loaf, the money in the suitcase was already worth less than the bread. This is not fiction. This is what happens when a country prints too much money. This is the story of Zimbabwe, and before it, Weimar Germany. Two nations, two different centuries, same mistake, same ending. And a terrifying lesson the world keeps forgetting, when money meant something. For most of human history, money was simple. It was heavy. It clinked. It was made of metal pulled from the ground. Gold, silver, copper. Money had limits because nature had limits. You couldn't print gold. You had to mine it, dig it, sweat for it. That scarcity gave money its power. But paper changed everything. Paper money was supposed to be a promise, a claim, a receipt saying this piece of paper represents real value somewhere else. As long as people believed that promise, paper worked. When they stopped believing, money died. Germany after the war. In 1918, Germany was a broken nation. World War I had ended, and Germany had lost. Not just the war, but its pride, its economy, and its future. The Treaty of Versailles punished Germany harshly. The country was ordered to pay massive reparations to the Allied powers, not in German money, but in gold and foreign currency. Germany didn't have enough. Factories were damaged, workers were unemployed, the government was desperate. And desperation makes people do dangerous things. Instead of raising taxes, which would cause riots, or defaulting, which would collapse the state, the German government chose what seemed like the easiest option. They turned on the printing presses. At first, it didn't look like a disaster. More money meant bills could be paid, soldiers could be compensated, debts could be pushed into the future. The economy seemed to breathe again. But something invisible had started to rot. The first cracks, prices began to rise. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Bread cost a little more. Milk went up. Rent followed. The government said it was temporary. Businesses blamed shortages. Economists said the market would correct itself. So Germany printed more money, and more, and more. Each new banknote made every existing banknote worth slightly less. Inflation crept in quietly at first, like a thief who steals one coin a night. Then it stopped being quiet, when numbers lost meaning. By 1921, inflation was accelerating. By 1922, it was terrifying. People were paid twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, because by evening, wages lost value. Workers rushed from factories straight to shops, spending money immediately before prices changed again. Children played with stacks of banknotes like building blocks. Restaurants stopped printing menus. It was pointless. A cup of coffee that cost 5 marks in the morning could cost 50 by night, then 500, then 5,000, then 5 million, then 5 billion. German banknotes became absurd, covered in zeros, stamped over older notes because printing new designs was too slow. Money wasn't counted anymore. It was weighed. Savings turned to dust. The real tragedy wasn't the numbers. It was what they did to people. Middle-class families, teachers, clerks, engineers had done everything right. They saved money for decades. They trusted the system. Those savings became worthless. A lifetime of work couldn't buy a loaf of bread. Pensions vanished. Insurance meant nothing. Contracts collapsed. Only those with real assets survived. Land, factories, foreign currency. Everyone else watched their future evaporate. This wasn't just economic collapse. It was psychological destruction. People lost faith not only in money, but in institutions, in democracy, in truth itself. And from that chaos, something darker would rise. But that comes later. First, we need to travel to Africa. Zimbabwe's promise. At independence in 1980, Zimbabwe was full of hope. It had fertile land, strong agriculture, a functioning industrial base, one of the best education systems in Africa. Its currency was respected. For years, things worked. Then politics intervened. Land reforms, meant to fix historical injustices, were executed violently and chaotically. Productive farms were seized. Agricultural output collapsed. Food shortages followed. Exports vanished. Foreign currency dried up. The government faced a familiar problem. Expenses stayed high. Revenue disappeared. And once again, leaders chose the printing press, the shortcut that isn't. At first, Zimbabwe printed modestly, then more, then vastly more. Money flooded the system, chasing fewer goods. Inflation exploded. The government blamed sanctions, businesses blamed hoarders, officials denied reality. But reality doesn't care about excuses. By 2006, inflation was out of control. By 2008, it was the worst hyperinflation ever recorded. Prices doubled every 24 hours, then every 12, then a few hours. The central bank issued notes worth 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion, 10 billion, $100 billion, 100 trillion. And it still wasn't enough to buy basic groceries. When money becomes a joke, Zimbabweans adapted in heartbreaking ways. People carried money in plastic bags. Wheelbarrows replaced wallets. Cashiers stopped counting zeros. They estimated. A bus ticket cost billions. Employees were paid in the morning and rushed to spend it before lunch. Shops changed prices several times a day. Some stores refused local currency entirely. Bartering returned. Bread was traded for soap, fuel for food, foreign dollars for survival. Teachers quit. Doctors left. Engineers emigrated. A country drained of its skills. Not because people were lazy, but because money no longer meant anything. Final collapse. Eventually, Zimbabwe did something unthinkable. It abandoned its own currency. The Zimbabwe dollar, once a symbol of independence, was scrapped. The country began using US dollars, South African rand, and other foreign currencies. Only then did inflation stop. Not because printing money worked, but because printing money ended. The common thread. Germany and Zimbabwe were different in culture, geography, and time, but their collapses followed the same script. Government spends more than it earns. Revenue collapses. Printing money feels painless. Inflation starts slowly. Confidence cracks. Printing accelerates. Currency collapses. Society fractures. Hyperinflation is not just an economic event. It is a social one. It destroys trust. When money fails, contracts fail. When contracts fail, institutions fail. When institutions fail, people look for strong men, scapegoats, and simple answers. In Germany, hyperinflation helped pave the way for extremism. In Zimbabwe, it hollowed out a nation. The lie behind the printing press. The most dangerous lie in economics is simple. Just print more money. Printing money feels powerful. It avoids hard choices. It delays pain. But money is not wealth. Wealth is productivity, goods, than real value, every unit of currency becomes a lie. Goods, services, skills, trust. When money grows faster than real value, every unit of currency becomes a lie, and eventually people stop believing. Once belief dies, money dies with it. The warning. Every generation believes this time is different. Better technology, smarter economists, more control. But the laws of value don't change. You cannot print prosperity. You cannot ink your way out of scarcity. You cannot fool reality forever. Zimbabwe learned it in the 21st century. Germany learned it in the 20th. The question is not whether it can happen again. The question is where, and whether anyone will listen before the suitcase comes out.